Jamano Money Transfer Bureau de Change, your go-to option when it comes to money transfer. With Jamano, you can send money from anywhere in the world to your family and loved ones in the Gambia and be sure the funds will be delivered to them within the shortest time possible. For your convenience, funds sent through Jamano Money Transfer can be picked from all the banks and multiple other financial institutions, including Ajib Bank, Trust Bank, GT Bank, Mega Bank, Basic Bank, Reliance Financial Services, and Approved Services. Visit our head office at Bruceby opposite AfricMed next to Trust Bank Limited or email us at info@jamanomt.com. You can as well call us on 310-3050 or 310-3051 or yet still 733-0688. Our opening hours are 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Monday to Saturday and 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. on Sunday. Jamano Money Transfer, your most trusted money transfer service where customer satisfaction is paramount. When you think of a simple, fast, and reliable money transfer, think Jamano Money Transfer.
Agada di.
Mbijan aganya.
Albaka.
Mbaka important.
Yo, nga transfer la sto.
Ya transfer la sto.
Ha, code nyinji.
Okay. Important. Nsila ID soto.
Ah, sa soto. Sorry. Agada di.
Mbijan bro.
Albaka.
Mbaka.
Bara alla service o tariaka.
Ah,
bare mo ki janna nun kunu bara tariaka.
Ah, janno mi yona forest de bureau. Gambia tonkon na no mbari ya bere. Ha. Birim koyna fo katon.
Bari si kodo kino katon nim fo bolon labe ko.
56 branches mola soto Gambia jam.
Ha?
Ha. Gambia kono ani Gambia bantala bankol. Nka kono kiya bere. Kodo sifa fo falindiro fo nyaadi lafta memmen na kodi to poto nin kodi maraw. Jannom number 1 di nyonta. Andum fana nata anoda enterprise sotale. Wolam nyindi ko domorol fana kol fana be firale de dadi mani domorol di fana beteat. Gambia dawda yalo ngam fa kendol sotale je.
Ha e wo moyo diat ha.
Apelenta
barka ba. Ni mo lafta nyelen kendol e bina.
Yalo bu kanila ko la barka ba.
Yalo ndel chosano lo.
Barka.
Islamic microfinance is becoming an increasingly popular mechanism for poverty alleviation, especially for developing countries around the world. This microfinance service adheres to the principles of Islam as a form of social responsibility. Yona Islamic Microfinance is the Islamic microfinance of choice in the Gambia, trustworthy and reliable. At Yona Islamic Microfinance, we provide savings products, current accounts, financing products in conformity with Islam. In addition, Yona Islamic Microfinance also offers local and international remittances, takaful fund, management of zakat, management of awqaf, trading and investment, and building of strategic partnerships to bring financial services to the doorstep of the poor with donor projects, madrasas, youth organizations, women groups, and farmer organizations. Make a choice with Yona Islamic Microfinance today. For more information on Yona Islamic Microfinance, call 377-2151 or 9832-151 or visit Yona head office at Tipa Garage, Bakote, or visit any Yona branch located countrywide near you.
Hello and welcome. This is the Brunch. I'm Lavin Cham, back with your weekly look at current affairs. This week, I'm honored to have in the studio, once again, after a long time, and after a memorable appearance here a couple of years ago, Madi Jobarteh, the founder and CEO of the Edward Francis Small Center for Rights and Justice, is back with me in the studio. Today we will discuss about the center, its formation, objective, mandate, and the work it's covered so far. And as you very well know, the center has been making positions on different matters that happen in the political, socio-economic space and rights, matters dealing with human rights in the Gambia and abroad. Well, of course, I don't think we have time to exhaust all that, but we will try. First, welcome, Madi.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Do you remember when last week you were here? You raised a lot of controversy and even embarrassed me by taking on my guest. It was quite a while ago.
Remind me. I know I've not been here for a while, so yes.
Okay. Let's just go straight to the point. The Edward Francis Small Center for Rights and Justice is barely 5 months or 6.
Yeah, 6, 7 months.
But from its proactiveness, it might look that it's been around for well over a year. What inspired the center, the formation of the center, the establishment of the center?
Okay. Well, thank you. First of all, for the invitation.
Thank you.
And I hope we'll have a good conversation and, something that we will also be able to lay out, in detail what the center is about. So, Chama, I've been in Gambia's development arena for the past 30 years, and, also in different ways. We were journalists, years ago. So I've been in the journalism field. I've been, in the civil society most of the time. But, I've even worked in the international scene, working for the UN. And, I've even worked in government. I mean, if you look at my time at Radio Gambia, but also at GRA, Gambia Revenue Authority. So briefly though, but I mean, I've been therefore in the Gambia's policy and development and governance space for a long time. And but most of it in the civil society. And in the civil society, most of the time at Tango, I've sought to position our civil society in such a way as to, strategically, effectively impact on this governance, development, and policy space. In any country in the world, there's a government, there's a governance system. And the whole idea of the governance system is for the management of the affairs of the resources of the people. And you realize that these are essentially issues surrounding human rights, because it's about, when you say development, it's about human rights. When we say policy, it's about human rights, because what you are trying to seek to achieve is the upliftment of the living standards of the people, the creation of opportunities in order for people to be able to, get the capacity in any way you can imagine, to be able to have livelihoods, to be able to live in a space where there is safety and security, and it goes on. So that's the whole purpose of governance. And 3 key institutions or pillars are in any country. You have the state, the market, and the civil society. And the state, of course, is, as government, what I can simply just say government, is the, national institution responsible for this. Lawmaking, law enforcement, service provision, regulation, monitoring, because business is there, and business, of course, they are all interested in profit. And so, and then civil society is there, which is not seeking profit, like for itself, like business, but it is not also seeking power, just like the state is. So its purpose really is to make sure the space is such that all actors, adhere to certain standards, values that are expressed in our laws and institutions and so on for the interest of the people. So as I said, I've been in this space for a long time, and civil society particularly, but I've seen a weakness, yes, which I had sought to address.
Weakness in the civil service, rather in the civil society,
weakness in our governance environment. Okay. And then, of course, that will also highlight the weakness in the civil society. The weakness in our governance since independence, Charm, is essentially 2 points. Transparency and accountability, which are at the heart of development. You cannot have development in the absence of transparency and accountability. You cannot have strong policy, legal, institutional environment in the absence of transparency and accountability. So you cannot have human rights protection in the absence of transparency and accountability.
So you think these key areas where we had trouble with?
Yeah, that's where we have trouble. And Cham, this goes to also explain, if you look around the world, any country that is going up or down, you can bring the whole narrative down to transparency and accountability. Whether they are so-called democracies or so-called autocracies, or whatever form of governance they have. At the end of the day, it gets to the point where it is how institutions, officials, but the rest of society, how, decisions are made and how they are transparent, how actions are made and how they are transparent. And because of those decisions and actions, who make them, their impact, their effect, and so on, how they are held to account. How the resources of the country are managed, the affairs of the country are managed, which reflect in the decisions and actions, and how these are situated in accountability, so that people take responsibility, institutions take responsibility, not just for the decisions and actions they take, but for their performance, for their delivery, and so on. So where you have limited transparency and accountability, you can even generate a so-called high development in terms of infrastructure, for example, in terms of creating services, facilities, and so on. But then it also speaks to the fragility of the state and society, so that eventually what you are going to have is a system that will just crumble down. And again, there are many examples of that, I can share, so that when you look at countries in terms of fragility, you realize that countries that are solid, that have solid, development foundations, governance foundations, political stability, economic stability, and so on, certainty and predictability, are countries that are more transparent and accountable, more secure, as opposed to countries that are very fragile, dealing with issues of conflict. And because when there is no transparency and accountability, it creates serious inequalities, imbalances, poverty, deprivation, but and other forms of abuses of human rights. So when I look at the Gambia, therefore, and my work in the space, I have come to the conclusion that transparency and accountability are very weak in the Gambia. And I have attempted to promote this idea, this agenda, as a civil society person myself, even as a journalist at Radio Gambia. If you had talked about that, I can choose some of the actions, initiatives I did. So that in the end, I thought, therefore, if this is my vision, if this is my understanding, and I have attempted to encourage this, to promote this, to, spearhead it with, other people, it is not working the way I see it, like anyone else, then create your own platform. So EF Small Center is informed by this. But of course, within the whole, framework of our historic, historical experience. And that is where EF Small as a person also connects, because that also relates to the work he did. His legacy was, when you analyze it, essentially it is also relating to transparency and accountability.
Well, I was going to come after you have outlined why you conceived the idea. I was going to say, why did you take the name Edward Francis? But you've already sneaked into that. Because I've seen that in the First Republic, or in the period immediately after independence, so many names have been associated with our struggle for independence and self-determination. But people tend to sideline names like Edward Francis Small. In fact, thanks to Foroya and the Doi, I think Foroya named their printing press Edward Francis Small, and then later on we saw even the government of Yaya Jammeh named the Royal Victoria Hospital after him. Now I think the third most prominent thing is your center, I guess.
Yeah, I think so.
Are you definitely so that the state have given enough in terms of recognition to this gentleman than others compared to the Gaba Jahumpas, the Sadawada Jawaras, the Perinjais, the Asan Musas? Do you think we have given enough recognition yet for Edward Francis?
No, we have not. I mean, not just the state, but the society as a whole.
Why do you think his role was quite pivotal in our struggle?
Yeah, because he laid the foundation for what became our independence. He was not just a journalist. He was a trade unionist. He was a human rights activist. He was an activist, a farmers, activist. He was a workers activist as a trade unionist. He was a political activist because he was seeking representative institutions. And his agitations, the colonial office at the time had described him as a man who, sort of creates unimaginable set of grievances, who finds protest or sort of as irresistible. They describe in those terms to London. But it was his agitations eventually, that led to the creation or the inclusion of Gambians as Africans in the Batos Legislative Council sometime in 1947. And, eventually that, continued to the point that other people got into that legislative council, Gaba Jahumpa and so on. And that progression continued until in the 50s when political parties were formed, So our independence, therefore, it's, started from there. And, it goes way back in the 20s and when E.F. Small started, his activism. So if you ask me where our independence started, I'll go to him when he started. And so that eventually have what we have as the Republic of the Gambia.
I see.
Sadly, though, the state and the society as a whole do not give him the recognition. Not just him, but many other Gambians as well.
Absolutely, yes.
Because even Jawara or Gaba Champa, P.S. Njai, and so on, some of our chiefs, some of our
we still have to
private
do more.
individuals. Yes, we've not really documented our history to really, identify and showcase individuals who have made contributions. You drive around the Gambia, Banjul to Basse, you will see, no statue of E.F. Small himself, or I am Gaba Jahumpa, or P.S. Njai. I mean, Jawara. Just now, I think we are having a monument for him. Even though we have few places named after him. Yeah. So I think we've not done very well in that regard, which is very sad, and I hope we'll come to do that. But yeah, when I came up with this name, EF Small Center, and then issued our first statement, I remember somebody from the US, a Gambian about my age, shockingly said when he read the statement, he was surprised to realize EF Small is Gambian. So he said, I knew about EF Small Hospital when it was named, but for some reason, he had thought this is some British guy or some other person, and then mentioned, he said, like, for example, Batil Hardin Highway. I hear Batil Hardin Highway. I don't know who that person is. So when I had also EF Small Center, I said, we did not do well. In school, we were not taught fully our history as Gambians. And so we have to credit, Doi, as we said, and Foroya, because even for myself as a small boy, growing up, that was the name I heard of the name. and then with my interest in pursuing doing research in this name, I came to realize a lot of things. Yeah, so yeah, that's why we are here.
And that's 4 or 5 months ago. But since then, you have gathered momentum so much so that people, well, not just to allow you to blow your own trumpet, but I'll blow it for you. People said the center has become the most vocal or the most active civic society organization in the country. Now, some of the issues you tackle right on, like you said, accountability and transparency. But let's go a bit, and start to, what can you remember was your first major issue raised by the center? I can remember a few. Shall I juggle your mind and say?
Okay, juggle my mind.
Go ahead.
No, I'm saying, what was the first issue?
Oh,
you mean in terms of our press statement?
Yes.
Yeah.
In terms of and positions you've taken.
Yeah. I mean,
some controversial. Okay, let me go straight to the most controversial one.
Okay.
When the Honorable Minister of Foreign Affairs was nominated for Commonwealth Secretary Generalship, you become the lonely voice at the time among Gambians to say you don't approve of his nomination. People saw that as an outright, unpatriotic, not only unpatriotic, but somebody who really is causing, let's say, a self-inflicted. They haven't seen a person who will definitely disown his own compatriot for such a noble and respectable job. Why do you disagree with everybody that Kangara deserves to be Secretary General of the Commonwealth?
Yeah, but to be honest, though, I think that was before the center came into being.
Oh, really?
Yes. I think that was before the center came to being. But of course, I was a loud voice, leading voice in that with some others as well.
Okay.
And I've spoken about it, I guess, written about it extensively. So, Cham, it all goes back to the theme of the center, transparency and accountability.
Yes.
This country is 60 years old, and I don't know whether sometimes we take our time to really reflect on what that means. Particularly if you take a bird's eye view of the landscape, the Gambian landscape, social, economic, political landscape, and look at where we are. That is this what we could achieve in 60 years? All right, that is one. Number two, in that 60 years, 22 years of it was spent under a brutal dictatorship. And when we say a dictatorship, there is a dictator. Of course, someone is the president, is the dictator. But dictatorship is a governance system.
Yes.
Yes, and this governance system rests on pillars, on powers. So it is not merely the one person down there. It rests on critical pillars as institutions, as individuals running this system. And so ministries are critical pillars, in any governance environment, democracy or dictatorship, whatever you call it. Ministers are critical pillars, of power, in any governance system, whether it's a democracy or, and so if we happen to have a democracy, for example, and with a foreign minister that has, served to push that agenda, to represent us with that agenda, with that message, I think in years to come, we will come to applaud, that foreign minister or any minister in that democracy, in building that good governance in the Gambia. So conversely, if we have a dictatorship, and again, we have ministers, individuals serving as ministers, as powers, pillars of power of that dictatorship, and promoting, defending, justifying, carrying that agenda, we will also hold you to account. So the idea that we had a dictatorship, so it was Jammeh, all right, and so others, they were just, because you hear that also, people were just serving their country.
Yes, that's right.
And then you wonder, what do you understand to be serving your country? Because if you are serving your country, you are not serving your country without any sentiments, without any responsibility.
But when they say that, they make a point. Not everybody serving under Jammeh actually agreed with him.
Exactly. So that nurse in Edward Francis Moore Teaching Hospital in Banjul, or Farato Health Center, attending to pregnant women,
Yes.
attending to sick people there.
And not necessarily
Because that nurse is in no strategic position, is in no decision making position in terms of the governance of this country. He is at that service delivery, or, operational level. All right. But if that nurse now is someone who an arbitrarily arrested individual is sent to that hospital for that nurse to inject him wrongly to be killed. At that level, that nurse has to be held to account, even though he's at that very low level without any power in terms of the governance.
You mean the nurse could have the option to refuse?
To refuse. And I think serving your country would require that you refuse.
Even if the order came from.
Yes. So if you are a police officer, you are given unlawful order. You may be a lance corporal, an unlawful order to go and arrest. And this arrest is unlawful. I expect you to refuse as part of defending your country. You cannot say because this is an order given to me, I'm a police officer, or I'm a nurse, so I just have to carry instruction because it came from my superior. That is what to me is serving your country.
But that is when institutions are working. But when you have already said there is a dictator who will spare nobody, who will leave no stone unturned to make sure his orders are obeyed, you do that. You resist. As he himself will said, you are fired or even go 6 feet down.
Yeah, but then you cannot save yourself just to harm others. Because resign, get fired. If you have to be killed, get killed, but don't let other people to be killed so that you save your life. That's not honest. I mean, I told you I worked at Radio Gambia.
Yeah.
All right. I resigned because I disagreed with what was happening.
Yeah.
I was not a decision maker at Radio Gambia at the time or in the government, but at my level, I felt this I cannot take. I worked at GRA at the same time. I felt, the governance environment was such that, I cannot be here. And I resigned. So people have to define really what is working for your country.
So fast forward, you think Tangara, having agreed to serve that regime does not deserve to serve.
Exactly, because that regime, it was very clear at the time Tangara was Minister for Foreign Affairs, that regime was a human rights violator, was corrupt, was undermining the Gambia in any way you can imagine. That was what Yajam was doing. And if I'm minister, you see, people need to go to the constitution to read the role of the minister. Ministers are they're the ones running the country, the cabinet.
But we have seen people like that who have become international diplomats. Even Chambers, I think he's serving the Rawlings regime, which many people consider authoritarian.
It doesn't matter.
And he became an international, well-respected diplomat. Rawlings committed a lot of atrocities.
Yeah. So that still doesn't justify for another person to do it, or I'm not exonerating Ibn Chambers.
No, I haven't seen Ghanaians saying, well, Ibn Chambers having served on the Rawlings during, should not become the United Nations envoy for West Africa. Ghanaians didn't do that, like you did in the case of.
Ghanaians have their gun, so they have a choice, to deal with their issues. So I am, that would be false equivalence. I will not get into, contrasts and comparisons here.
Yeah.
But in the context of the Gambia, I think we need to hold our ministers to account for the decisions, for the actions of our government in terms of upholding the constitution, abiding by the rule of law, and managing the resources and the affairs of this country in the promotion and protection of the rights of the Gambia. And in that business, cabinet has a huge role. You cannot say I'm a cabinet minister, so I'm a minister for agriculture and foreign affairs, so what happens in other areas doesn't concern me. At the end of the day, that is why a lot of meetings take place in this country, but the meeting we will always announce is cabinet meeting. Because cabinet meeting is about the destiny of this country. It's about the present and the future of this country. It's about the lives, the very lives of you and me and every individual in this country. So cabinet is not a joke. A minister position is not a joke. It's a significant, strategic, powerful position with immense responsibility for the life and the destiny of a country.
So on that account, you think having served there, Tangara was in desire?
Yeah, because he had maintained a power system that was abusing Gambian rights, that was mismanaging Gambian resources and Gambian affairs, and that was subjecting Gambia to, the misrule that was happening. And every minister, I feel, should be held account for that. Because look, Jammeh does not own this country.
Yeah.
And, God did not put him there. God did not put you there as minister, as a minister. You are there as a minister based on our laws with very clear responsibilities. And so you cannot just, we cannot just assume that to be a minister is of no consequence. It is not.
Okay.
Yes.
Moving on then, as recent as a few days ago, you disagreed with the criminal, the new criminal act, which now criminalize insults against president, vice president, public officials, etc. According to your center and your personal view, that law is discriminatory because other people who might also be victims of such an act are not covered or protected by the law. Let's look at this this act itself. I even heard that even people who are fortune sayers, people who which are traditionally very established in our society, might get into conflict with the law. What do you understand about this this new criminal law?
It's a bad law. It's an unjust law. I mean, that provision, because it's within the whole big law, the criminal offenses.
But the government argued that, in fact, this is going to protect people from unnecessary abuse.
No,
insults.
if you, according to that law,
Yeah.
if you insult the father of the Imam Ratib right now, by law, nothing will happen to you. According to that law.
Okay.
If you insult the mother of Uzeni Dabo, nothing will happen to you. If you insult the uncle of Halifa Saleh, nothing will happen to you. If you insult my mother, by law, nothing will happen to you. If I insult your aunt, by law, nothing will happen to you. If Barrow insults my mother today, according to this law, nothing will happen to him. If Ismail Sise insults the father of Lamin Cham today, nothing will happen to you. But if you, Lamin Cham, you insult the aunt of Ismail Sise, Minister Ismail Sise, you can be arrested and sent to jail based on that law. If you insult the mother of the Vice President Mohamed B.S. Jallow, you can be arrested and taken to court. If I insult the uncle of the IGP Sidi Mukhtar Toure, I can be arrested and I can find myself in jail. This is it.
I see.
So this law, therefore, is discriminatory. It's unfair. Now, I agree with the principle that nobody should insult.
Yes.
Yes. This is what our cultures we are trained. This is what our religion we are trained. This is what the law itself, because law is also about ethics, and human rights about ethics, ethical values, that we should not insult. We should not, because insulting is derogation, is defamation, is trying to impugn the reputation of another individual, and that is a human rights violation. We should not degrade the dignity of one another. So insult should be avoided completely in any way.
But that's what the law is trying to do.
No, the law is not trying to do that. The law is trying to say for certain people, we should not insult them. But for the rest of this population, we can insult them. Because the law did not say, because the criminal code, and I hope people read our statement in terms of the criminal code.
Yeah.
I don't know where I can get it here to highlight
Just
one aspect of it. That is the value or the meaning of the criminal code, all right? For people to, understand what that means. I'm trying to open this here. The criminal code, like in any country, is very important, because ultimately it is there to deal with crimes, to prevent crimes.
Yeah.
And these crimes can come in various forms.
Yes.
Yes, it is not just stealing your property, but it is also a law that protects my dignity, not just my person, my physical being, that I would not be punched, attacked by someone, but also protects my dignity as a human being. That's why we have slander or libel or defamation. That I have reputation.
Yeah.
That you cannot go and destroy my reputation.
Yeah.
So when you're gonna have a law like that, let it not be discriminated, because the reputation that President Barrow has and his mother is the reputation I have, dignity I have, and my mother. So Mr. Barrow may be president, but he has no more dignity than that woman or that madman in at Tanka Tanka. We are all equal in rights and dignity.
Yes.
And everyone's dignity and rights must be protected. But this law and this provision in the criminal code, section 107, is not trying to do that. And the evidence of that, to tell you, Minister Ismail Assise was on radio some time ago, and we highlighted it.
Yeah.
And responding to critics of the government,
Yeah.
and said, by Ken Momut Dekabi, something like that.
Yeah,
Now, we know that is not a respectful language. That's an insult in our language.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, those critics, their fathers did not do anything. Their fathers are innocent. Why should I get to respond to those people and tell them, by Ken Momut Dekabi? All right. We saw not long ago also our ambassador, Fatmata Jahumpasise, said, UDP MPs and UDP members are Dome Haram.
UDP MPs.
Yes. and members. All right, but even MPs there.
Yeah.
Now that is an insult. That's parental insult.
Well, that was a gossip, not meant to be public. But
No, but Cham, the law, the culture, the religion, what they teach us, even in private, we should not insult anyone. All right, but let it be a gossip in private. But it now became public,
Yeah.
and it is the voice of a person.
Yeah.
But by this law, because that law did not cover ordinary members, it covers the National Assembly members.
It covered them.
Because the law says president, vice president, National Assembly member, minister.
So
So I hope they won't arrest
the law will not be applied retroactively.
In
that case, the law will not be applied.
But what it
retroactively.
just highlights is the unfairness, the discriminatory nature of this law. And Cham, these are all the issues that really concern me about this country, particularly from 2017 to date. Why do you create this kind of law? I mean, Barrow himself and his other ministers, they've made derogatory remarks against citizens in public functions at State House. Now, my expectation is from 2017, we should renew this society. I mean, maybe not even renew, but we should change this society in a way to create a whole new society,
I see.
Different from what has been operating for the past 60 years.
So you are disappointed, with
I'm hugely disappointed
by this
because,
law.
Yeah, because this law, the Criminal Offences Bill, was first put before Parliament in 2019 under the former Minister of Justice, Tambedo. There was an outcry. I was one of the voices against this parental insult.
Yeah.
It was taken out, and the bill was brought back, and then only for it to come out now approved with that same law back in there. So I think as a center, this is it. We are a human rights center.
Yeah.
And so we stand for human rights for all. Yes.
Okay.
And so it is not enough to create a law, but it is important that any law that is created protects all rights.
Good. Let's move on to, you mentioned accountability and transparency are core pillars in your decision to come up with the center, and of course in the overall status of our country. Two key things has happened, and in fact one is still raging. That is the Jammeh assets. If you are in the country, I think you were out of the country for some time, but then during the crisis, you've seen the government came out with what was supposed to be a list of people who are buyers and beneficiaries or sort of Jammeh properties, sales of Jammeh properties. You heard about the gala demonstration and their demands and the government coming out. People are still not satisfied with the way that thing is handled. Government has promised an inquiry. Parliament has started or meant to start an inquiry into it. You made some comments, I think, from the center and your own perspective. Take us through. What is your take on that?
It's rather unfortunate where we are as regards the Jammeh assets. you know, because people have to contextualize this, that when we got to 2017, we created two critical institutions or processes as part of this transitional justice process, which is fundamental in, building that new Gambia. These two institutions are the TRRC and the Janneh Commission. The TRRC was to look into the human rights violations.
Indeed.
All right. And then the Janneh Commission was to look at the financial, property issues of Jammeh. And these things, two things are linked. I tell people the mother and father of human rights violations is corruption. And Janneh Commission is essentially about corruption. Yeah, financial corruption and things like that. If you look at every case of the TRRC, the human rights violations that we went through over the past 22 years, you realize that essentially they are all dealing with emanating out of corruption. All right. People being arrested, and of course it may reflect civil and political rights issues. But then at the core of it, really, you realize it is about maintaining a dictatorship. And so when we say dictatorship, it is economic. All right. So that this dictator is there. The whole idea of any dictatorship, look around the world, look in history, is to create a system where a dictator and the enablers of the dictatorship accumulate the resources of the society for themselves. And so when we resist, they can kill us. And when we expose them as journalists, they can kill us. When they, protest as activists, they can kill us. And we say civil and political rights. But then one has to ask, but why are the activists or the journalists or the political opponents, what are they fighting about? It's not just about power. Political. It's at the core of it is economic. And that is how the TRRC links with the Janneh Commission.
Oh, I see.
All right. So that when the Janneh Commission, with all the things that people will be saying, I think they've made a very good documentation of what happened in terms of how our resources, our finances were being managed or mismanaged. And they come up with very good recommendations. All right. And so my expectation is the government, two tools that are critical in building this new Gambia is the TRRC report and the Janneh Commission. These are two reports they should have taken up, with so much urgency and seriousness. But to sit here 2025, since the submission of the final report of Janneh Commission 6 years ago, and we sit here and still asking basic questions. Where are these assets? How are they disposed?
And where's the money?
And and where's the money generated, and so on. I think that's a huge disappointment for me in the government. All right. And so that until today, I guess most Gambians are at a loss as to what really happened, how it happened. And so, and I hope, Gambians would not rest and continue to demand. And so we issued a statement a few days ago, because when the Republic published their report and then the gala protest took place, the Minister of Justice issued a press statement on May 5th to say they will publish a comprehensive report in due course. Today is 35 or 37 days later, and that report is not out. So even the idea of the ministry telling us we will produce a comprehensive report in due course, that in itself is scandalous, because it is just showing either inefficiency, incompetence, or an attempt to, divert attention.
But they did come out with something that's were later criticized in some corners.
Something that we should have had since 2019, but then what they produced, what they say is the list, is scanty, is inadequate, and is incomprehensible, because when you produce something like this, bring it out with explanatory notes to explain how these things are, because I can see a list. We've seen list of vehicles and names and so on, I mean, but how was this done? Now, I hear them say there were advertisements. And I said to myself, but I am one Gambian who is hugely focused on the government and the political space and the, institutional space.
Yeah.
For such a major decision to happen without my knowledge.
Would be
So if I can question, but I cannot remember any advertisement of this. What about somebody living in Boraba? So how are Gambians really aware? Where did you put this thing? So I think it is sad.
And nothing has been said with the money that was generated.
And the money.
Yes.
And this is dangerous. And I think the government understands the gravity of this issue. This cannot be pushed aside. It cannot be put under the carpet. You cannot rationalize it as they're trying to do. I think a big mess has happened. I mean, the president came and made his statement. And which
do you believe him when he said he himself was getting to know some aspect of it? Even though there was a ministerial committee that he said he was reporting to him.
If I believe him, then I agree that he is a poor leader. Yes, he has committed dereliction of duty as the president for such a fundamental issue as the Jannah Commission, the Jama assets. You cannot sit 5 years, 6 years later and tell us we are just getting to know this. Barrow once said he's the most informed Gambian. Yeah, and so rightly so, because you are the president. You should be the most informed person in that country. So for you to say you are just getting to know this,
some aspect of it,
some aspect of it, even one bit of it, I think that is a dereliction of duty. That means you have not played your leadership role as you should.
Even though he said the ministerial committee was regularly reporting.
So that is on the other hand, I find it difficult to believe him. Because he also said there is a ministerial committee regularly reporting to him. So I either way, if I believe him or not believe him, he has just raised more questions than provided answers.
I see.
And as I said, this matter is a serious matter.
So what about do you have any faith in the parliamentary inquiry?
Cautiously, all right, because I know in regimes around the world, just as the Gala protesters and other citizens are genuinely looking at issues, I know regimes also take their measures to deal with these issues. So the parliamentary inquiry, I'm interested to know its source. What triggered the majority leader? Is it out of genuine interest for transparency and accountability, or was he driven by some other interests, probably to stifle this whole issue? So I don't know, but because he should know as National Assembly member, because this is not just the president and the Minister of Justice, but the National Assembly member itself. I have said way back at the time, 2019, 2020, that the Jannah Commission report should be brought to the National Assembly for the Parliament to have an extraordinary session to discuss the Jannah Commission report. This is not just a report for the president. This is a national report dealing with the destiny, the past and the present and the future of this country. So it should come to the National Assembly for thorough discussion so that they come up with relevant legislation to push it further. I have wrote about it. I have spoken about it. Written about it. I have spoken about it. I have met individual National Assembly members, to say, look, you should do this. So the majority leader had been in Parliament since 2017. Most of them have been there. They did not do it. Then all of a sudden now they are coming to do this. They need to be questioned. They need to be challenged. Why did you do this at the right time? So I am cautious. I want to be optimistic and welcome.
Well, they said the method will be public appearances and public.
Yeah, of course. But that also is still not enough, because we had acute death here, acute kidney injury.
Yes.
There was a special committee also to look into that. There were public, hearings. There was a report, the National Assembly produced a report. But most of it is not implemented.
Yeah, but at least the management of the MCA were either suspended, I think the head, the company involved had their license withdrawn. At least that's been kind of.
No, I'm not sure.
Even though it's conflict of interest.
No license was withdrawn.
Oh,
I mean,
thought it was.
yeah, and then of course there was also the presidential inquiry on the Aki.
Yeah.
Yes.
But the head of the MCA were suspended.
Which was a recommendation, I think, in the
Yeah.
in the parliament's report, not the presidential report. Which the
something.
presidential report, I'm not sure that has been public.
Mm.
That was a presidential inquiry. I'm not sure that has been public. All right.
There's a one inquiry. I think it is a parliamentary.
It's the parliamentary inquiry that was
highlighted
public, yes. But there are a lot of recommendations that have not been implemented. That is one. We had the COVID. There was also a special committee on COVID, and until now, I think there are a lot of issues in the
there.
COVID
Absolutely.
that that has not been done.
Accountability.
Yeah,
issues,
I mean, I know there is the ongoing petroleum side.
That's where I'm coming to.
You know,
I've scared it. I'm coming to the.
Yeah.
I'm coming to that from these assets.
Yeah.
Let's move on to the.
Yeah.
The-
So just to conclude, to say,
Yeah.
given the practice, I mean, the experience up to this moment, my trust, therefore, in this parliamentary inquiry is mixed, and I want them to prove me and governments wrong. I want them to vindicate themselves because they have spoken on the floor of the parliament. We have recorded their statements, and we are watching them. They are not doing us a favor. They are elected and paid to this job. In the first place, it is part of their failure that we got to this point. And I hope they will correct their failure and correct it exceptionally. So I want to send that message to the chair, Abdullah Sise, National Assembly member for Yundum, and all the other members that we are watching them, and they have a duty. They have a legal, political, and moral duty to make sure we get to the bottom of this.
Good. That is the Yamme assets.
Yeah.
Moving on to another huge, controversy which the government, has come out to, some people say downplay, denying that there was any oil discovered in the Gambia. But there have been several investigations, suggestions, and even, let's say, authoritative opinions expressed on the fact that the Gambia had a potential, really oil potential. The exploration, we were told, had been abandoned by the company FAR on the grounds that our oil or whatever is suspected of our oil is not commercially viable. On the other hand, Senegal, which shares, people said, exactly the same fields, borders, our own fields, have got oil and they are exploring and there are huge potentials there. There are suspicions that our oil probably is being stolen through some underground or some underwater cable being taken to rigs in Senegal and being exploited. Some said our government is complicit, in whatever decision has been taken to take us out of the oil conundrum and making it Senegal oil and the Gambia has no oil. Where do you stand at the center of this? Because this is another explosive matter that probably we have not seen the end of it. With that press release to say that Gambia doesn't have oil.
Yeah, so as a center, our position is once again transparency.
Yes.
That the government should be transparent. And which is not the case. Now, this idea of oil began since Jammeh days, at least formally, when he spoke about the Alhamdulillah project.
24 years ago.
Yeah, when he talked about the Alhamdulillah project, and said so many things. We did not put the words in his mouth.
Yes.
And he was not just some riffraff sitting there. He was the head of state. And so one would expect if a head of state says something, should have had thought about it very well, had good information.
Yes.
And then we cruised with him.
But you yourself have doubted Jammeh's credibility.
Yeah, well, now he's not president. He's former president. So he sits, in exile, self-imposed exile, and says Senegal is stealing our oil.
Yes.
I don't trust that. And saying a lot of things as if he knew those things when he was president. But you had failed to tell Gambians, the whole picture when you were president. So you have, failed in your responsibility.
But at least he had said Okay, there have been some studies, and studies have indicated that our potentials, there are great potentials for oil in our country. He brandished a disc that he said contained the details.
When he was president.
When he was president.
Yeah.
And he talked about some exploration company, with whom he disagreed with, as to the percentages.
Which he did not tell us.
But he once said, even when he was in power, that he disagreed that the percentage allocated to the Gambia was not. He said that when he was in power.
Yeah, but he wasn't transparent in terms of laying out the details.
Yeah,
whatever arrangement it was. So
he sent Gambians to go and study petroleum.
Yeah.
He did that.
Yeah. So again, the Gambia is not the first country to have oil deposits. Oil, exploration is going on around the world. Drilling is going on. People are producing. In our sub-region, countries are producing.
In fact,
so this is not a strange thing. To the point that you would sit there. I mean, all these years later, and we are still at the same place, and you still claim we have oil. All right. So for me, Jammeh wasn't transparent. He may be telling the truth or not now, but this is why for me now the onus is on the Gambia government to be transparent. Cham, we monitor the Gambia government. All right. In the name of our organization, every day I go to government websites. All right. If you check my laptop, you'll see number of government websites open. Latest up to last night, I was checking the Ministry of Petroleum and Energy website. They have a section there, page that called downloads. I go and check the downloads, look at press releases they have issued, and I see only 3 press releases there.
Which is the latest one? It should be that is the last one, that there's no, Gambia has no oil.
The one they respond to Jammeh.
Yes.
Yes. So, but I go back, I see various reports, basically documents relating to bidding processes or information to bidders or some information that really is not providing the kind of transparency Gambians need. I go to FAR. I have FAR reports. All right. I mean, where I find, in fact, more information about the operations in the Gambia than in the Ministry of Petroleum and Energy. So for me, and we said we have 6 blocks. So we have issued yesterday. We have submitted a letter of request.
Oh yeah,
information.
The center. Okay.
Yeah, the center. Yeah. We have submitted a letter of request using the Access to Information Act to the Ministry of Petroleum, and we have listed information that we are requesting for them to provide. Let us know these negotiations. Let us know the state of these oil blocks and what they call prospects, or and so on. All right. I know Sangomar is is in the same line with, I think, blocks 2. Because the blocks are, I think 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. From the shore going up.
Those we heard much about are 2 and 5.
Right. So
whatever that means.
Exactly. So if Sangoma is, doing what they are doing, one would say, by our likelihood, then our, adjacent blocks, to Sangoma, or opposite blocks to Sangoma, should also have petroleum. When you look at it, logically speaking, the experts may say something different, but what is important now is for the Ministry of Petroleum and Energy to, inform Gambians really what is happening. They had engagements with FAR, and FAR is operating in other places anyway. There are many more petroleum companies in the world other than FAR. If you have these deposits, we need to deal with them because Gambia needs them.
But FAR said we don't have, our prospects are 0. And then in Senegal, well, they said it's oil there.
So all this requires, again, our government to be adequately transparent to us. It is the government's decision who went into this. They went and even named identified places and called them Block A, 1 and 2. And we've got information at one point that took us up there with a lot of hope, and then information that took away all that hope, then information that gives mixed feelings, All right. So there needs to be transparency. All right. So that we know, and because I mean, not just petroleum, the overall mineral resources of this country.
Exactly.
That is also a matter we are dealing with, because I mean, again, and which is why, whatever government says, we have reason to doubt and to demand transparency, because sand mining, for example, is taking place in this country. Mining is taking place in this country, and it's hard to determine.
Not long ago, the Republic did an article which suggests that it too has transparency problems.
Exactly. So, I mean, we need our government to be really professional. Yes, to be professional, to be honest, and to be transparent to Gambians. These are Gambians' collective heritage. These are our heritage as citizens. And those officials in the ministries across the government are elected or appointed by the people to protect, preserve, and manage our heritage, our collective heritage for us. There should be no, gray area there.
Absolutely.
Yes. So one would expect by now, you go to the Ministry of Petroleum and Energy's website, you practically would find anything that you need to know,
including studies and conclusions that have been made, that the reasons and studies that suggest that yes, we definitely don't have oil.
But I believe, I mean, again, that is circumstantial, logical, that we have petroleum, we have oil. I don't think it must be 2005 when Jama took out the CD.
20 years or 21 years ago.
All right. I don't believe it was
it was just for an episode of one of his comedy.
I don't think so. And I don't think the creation of the Ministry of Petroleum and Energy, that's a big decision.
That was
the construction of Petroleum House.
Yes.
The taking of Gambians to go and study petroleum.
There must be tangible hope, at least.
All right. All that cannot be just out of nothing. I mean, and we still have a Ministry of Petroleum and Energy existed. For a country with no petroleum.
Well,
so
it was unthinkable. You are right. It was unthinkable on the Jawara. There had not been.
Jawara did not do so. I mean, when other countries had the Ministry of Petroleum, like Nigeria or other. So the reason government would do it, because government, government is a highly informed institution. Because government is driven by research, by knowledge, by expertise. So government does not do things, out of intuition, imagination. Because government is very deliberate. So government is not one person, who is at the crossroads thinking about, today I dream about this, I'll do that. No, institutions don't operate that way. So the fact that you have all of these things in place, we even created laws relating to this. Cannot be for free.
Indeed.
Now
let's look into the political landscape going on to the 2026 elections, because you said the cornerstones of it is transparency and accountability. We will have elections in December 2026, and that is to elect a president, right? Key political players, well, familiar ones, in fact have started already. I think the atmosphere, even though we have well over a year to go, the atmosphere seems to be charging, if not already charged. Now, you've had the rhetorics, the positions. Let's look at the electoral bill itself, which has just been passed. And your center is definitely very keen in the provision or in the maintenance of fairness in every aspect of it. What is your position on fairness of our elections? For example, electoral bill, we've seen that clause 14 has been punched off. That would have allowed IEC to go to our diaspora, to go and register them. That clause has been voted down by allegedly governing party NPP and their supporters. There have been controversies also as to the new constitution, which has absolute majority and 2 term limits, etc. So going into the elections in 2026, what would you, as a center, would have loved to be in place to ensure, fairness and transparency?
Well, first of all, we would say that President Barrow should not seek a third term. And we have made a statement to that effect.
Yes.
That it is important that we do not have anyone serve as president of this country ever again since the removal of the
But the
dictatorship.
clear answer to that, even from non-NPP supporters, is that there is no provision in the constitution which bar him or any other person from going for more than 2 terms. So on what aspects are you coming from? Are you saying morally? Because you cannot be arguing legally.
Yes. So, Cham, we cannot ever forget our history and experience. Because this constitution today that somebody would defend, Barrow's third term bid was the constitution, or is the constitution that we had all, and we are still advocating that it is unfit for purpose. And so morally, as you said, politically as well, it is not an argument to want to use 1997 to justify a third term for the incumbent.
Then let's have the 2024 then, if you don't want us to use 1997.
No, but why don't we have a new constitution until now? It is simply because of the failure of this government to make sure that Gambia has a new constitution. An objective that Mr. Barrow had set for himself in his 2016 manifesto and the coalition MOU. But they have failed to make sure we have a new constitution since then. And so in that failure, they cannot now come around to want to say the 1997 constitution did not stop this. Right. So for me, I'm not discussing about the 1997 constitution. But as a center, we are saying, given our history and experience, given the commitments made by our political leaders, including Mr. Barrow, all right, and the desires of Gambians, no person should serve for more than 10 years. Again, and having served for 10 years, by 2026, Mr. Barrow should take honesty and courage and patriotism to step down and, so that his party look for another candidate and they continue.
You have heard what he said about it, that he had considered that not to run, but because of the interest of his party, he's now decided he will run.
Yeah, which is a very unfortunate statement for anyone to say. Your party is your party. Political parties are required by the constitution, to seek this thing, a political office. All right, but political parties are not to be sustained, by self-perpetuation of one person or to, exist at the expense of the country. All right. So when he said that, therefore, it means you are prioritizing your political party over national interests. You are trying to, take the life of the country as a resource to sustain your party. All right. Which I think is pretty dishonest, and it's a very unfortunate thing for him to say, or for anyone to argue on that score. So again, as a center, we are saying that Mr. Barrow should not seek a third term, and as a center, we will campaign for that. All right. Now, that aside, the rest of it, we still have the election bill is still a bill.
Yeah, still ongoing.
All right.
Been discussed. Yeah.
Another unfortunate situation. By now, we should have had an election act which had guaranteed and already mechanisms put in place for diaspora voting. All right, which would have taken out attestations, which would have strengthened the IEC, to be more effective, more competent, more transparent, which would have put all safeguards to prevent abuse of incumbency, using public resources for any political party or candidates, campaigning. You would have seen, a political environment in which, insults and other malpractices are being addressed. All right. So unfortunately, we do not have that kind of law, election law yet. Therefore, undermining still the playing field, which we have been dealing with not just since 1996 when the elections decree was created, but way back since independence. These malpractices have always been with us. So we really detest that, and going towards 2026 is concerning because we still don't have a new electoral law, and the existing one is hugely inadequate. And this is not my opinion, Cham. I'm sure you remember GOFA, Gambia Opposition for Electoral Reforms.
Election reforms.
So that in 2012 probably, or 2015, they came together. I mean, the main parties at the time, UDP, DOI, GDC, I think GMC and NRP and PPP, put down 12 or 14 proposals. And all of the issues we are dealing with today were addressed there.
Addressing that one.
But again, all these parties eventually 2017 came to be in the parliament and the executive.
And they couldn't do
and they failed to do this, especially when we even had Solo Sunday rise up with a banner for electoral reforms. This is why at his burial funeral, I said all the coalition leaders betrayed
Solo
Sunday. By now, we should have had an election law, which we could have even, affectionately named the Solo Sunday law. But they all failed in the parliament and in the executive.
They had the opportunity to do exactly what they have been agitating for on the Jammeh.
But they failed to do so.
But they blew the opportunity.
So one of
is it because they want to use the same laws to their advantage now?
Well, that is the only conclusion we can arrive at. That at the end of the day, they realize that this law, as it is, benefits them. So
they're no on that account, they are not better than Jammeh.
They are not better than Jammeh. And even when civil society took action to address some of those problems, because you remember, Gambia participated, went to court against the attestation in 2021 election. It was 2021 election, and the court ruled that it is unlawful
in the case of Banjul.
But it is there. And again, another Gambian, I think Coach Pasambaja was part of it, took the issue of the diaspora voting to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court ruled. Now, these are points in their 12-point or 14-point demand in their GOVA, proposal in 2015, which they submitted to Jammeh, to the IEC, to the UN, to ECOWAS, and to Jesse Jackson. Right? But they did not do so. And now we got to this point. It's scandalous. So 2026, we may go into it with a lot of still with this same bad law, and but also of course, it's all part of it. The IC as an institution, but also the incumbency. How do we prevent abuse of incumbency?
But the government may gone, but they have another format called the IPC. One would have thought that they would have continued to propagate for this.
Again, they created the IPC Inter-Party Committee, right? And if you look at the memorandum of the Inter-Party Committee, again, it talked about, how to create a level playing field, how to create not just a level playing field in terms of laws and institutions, to prevent electoral malpractices, but it even talked about decent politics, that, there should be decent politics. All right. And so it's sad that the Inter-Party Committee, which should have been a very instrumental body to cleanse this politics of lies and insults, this polarization and all of this intolerance that is in our politics, but unfortunately the Inter-Party Committee has become ineffective. Yes, and which is really sad. Which is, and again, Cham, it speaks to the whole thing. Like at the end of the day, what is the matter with us that we cannot manage ourselves as a people? All right, we cannot say we don't have the knowledge, or we don't have the skills, or we don't have the tools, or the resources, or we don't have the expertise, the experience. We've lived this thing. So our leaders must have, take responsibility, must play that leadership role to see how do we bring about transformation in every aspect of our society. But here we are, more polarized politically today than ever, with all sorts of violence, but if you look at it, in the political discourse.
What about the key players, the parties and the individuals? Well, the political parties often said, journalists, that you have no business in our groups, but then of course, as journalists, we have issues we have a business in everything, because they are seeking for public approval, and they want public power. They want to exercise power on behalf of the people. Say they should be under our scrutiny. The governing, there seems to be problem everywhere. If you look at it, in the governing National People's Party, there are suspicions that there are, let's say, disagreements. We saw the issue about Keba Madi Bojang allegedly trying to form a party. He is definitely NPP. In the UDP, as recent as even now, they are at each other's throats over which camp, whether it should be Talib Bensouda's camp or it should be Yankuba Dabo's camp or some other camp that should take the leadership of the party. So it looks like we are going to 22. There are rumors that maybe Mama Kande of the GDC may pack up and join the NPP, stuff like that. So it looks like we're going to the elections with a very confused atmosphere. The questions will be, will the NPP be united as President Barrow wants it, or the UDP may fall into 2 or 3 camps? So what are your perspectives on this matter? and what does the SFL and other third-party players come into it?
Oh, okay. Cham, I'm a political analyst.
Some people say you are a politician.
Which is my right as well. So that is fine. That's my
an opposition politician, they say.
Which is also my right. So where rights are, I don't discuss those things, negotiate those things. Like so I have a right to be
well, it's our business to analyze.
But as a civil society actor, and particularly as a small center, there are some partisan issues that are not for me.
They are not for you.
Yeah. So you mentioned this Keba Madi Bojang, is it?
Yes.
Yeah. For example, I don't know him, but as a citizen, he has a right to form his party.
Yes.
I have no problems about that. Now, UDP, whatever comes there or not, that's not my business. I mean, that is up to them. NPP, how they formed a coalition again. Now, as a rights activist and as a center, what concerns me and our center is to recognize, first of all, that political parties are constitutional creations. The Constitution has set the governance system in the Gambia in such a way that government is run by political parties. We can have independent candidates that also are provided, but political parties run the government. Political parties produce presidents and National Assembly members, mayors, chairpersons, councillors, and these are the people in charge of our institutions of governance. So that means political parties are a legitimate target for the center. All right. It's a legitimate target because they are institutions, national institutions created to assume state power, to which we will pay our tax and we will hand over our rights and our, powers for them to manage the resources and affairs of this country.
On our behalf.
So whatever happens,
hence our concern.
Our concern.
Yeah.
All right. So in that concern, I care about governance, internal governance, that our political parties should adopt, should uphold high democratic standards in their decision making, in their leadership, in their membership, in their management, in their finances and everything. They should be transparent and accountable. All right. So we need to know their sources of funding, which they don't want to disclose.
Yes.
Because ultimately that is critical. In terms of the sovereignty of this country, in terms of the constitutionalism of this country in terms of the human rights of citizens, that our political parties are not clients, are not turned into clients of certain benefactors or patrons or interests. So our political parties should be transparent in terms of their financial, outlook. Yeah. So those are issues that
But from what you have seen so far, how transparent are political parties? We recently had people donating, and that was in the case of the NPP fundraising. People criticized them. I had people criticizing them.
Yeah.
And the UDP also have fundraising. I mean, they go all around the diaspora and raise funds. So you were trying to say your concern as a center is how and who donates to them and under what conditions.
Yeah. So, and this is why the election law is important. That law, which is also not addressed there fully, should address the issue of party financing. It is important. I hope they will put it there. But all the political parties also should take that individual responsibility that we are, and that's why they say the opposition are government in waiting.
Yes.
So it means you are effectively a government. You are just not either in power or not in power. So they need to take individual responsibility to be transparent and accountable to Gambians. So right now, NPP, and which we will deal with as a center. We are preparing to deal with that. Political party transparency and accountability. We visit their websites. Some have websites, some don't have websites. Some of their websites are not updated since 10 years ago. Some, right? So they need to be transparent. So we need to know, like NPP, what is your source of funding? How did you build your new headquarters? How are you maintaining your new headquarters or bureaus? At the same time, UDP, open bureaus around the country sometime a few years ago. We need to know where did the funding come from. All right, how are you sustaining these things? All right, I mean, doing the same thing. They are doing activities. GDC, the same thing. So we are looking at that to come up with a statement to demand that these parties need to be transparent. In terms of governance, again, we are saying political parties need to have standards, all right, of governance. In terms of their leadership, in terms of their membership. For example, political parties should have term limits. All right.
That's important. Why?
Yeah. Because it's all the governance to prevent self-perpetuation in power, which is very prevalent in our political parties. So our political parties. Cham, today, if you want certain parties, constitutions of our political parties, you have a problem. They are not even transparent in terms of sharing. I mean, some of the parties, their constitutions. And their constitution is a public document. So, but the constitutions need to uphold democratic values.
Just as is applicable in case of the state.
Yeah, exactly.
Like you said, there are governments in waiting. They should start from within before they assume power.
And it's best practice. Go and log into a political party, say, a website in Ghana, for example, or in the US or UK, you will see donations to the parties. So that every political party should have a donation policy. Because, for example, I may donate to UDP or NPP or some other party, but I don't want my name to be published. For example.
But
that should be the policy to guide that.
And they can look at my profile and said, well, I'm afraid we
will not take your money.
Yeah.
But also where the political parties are also assessed, they should be able to disclose at a certain level, that the political party is, the donors are disclosed. Yeah, so there should be a policy on donation. And I doubt any of our political parties have a donation policy, for example.
If there's not
so we need...
They will take every butut from anybody who walks.
Yeah, so we need that kind of governance system. Time limits, but also in terms of leadership, decision-making processes. Now, if you look at our political parties, the way they are structured, you have a central committee, and some they have a youth wing and a women's wing,
a regional committee or whatever.
But what is the level of involvement, participation
from
of the youth wing, for example, or the women's wing or so, other structures in terms of decision making? How do they influence decisions in the political parties?
Yes.
So that, decision is not concentrated in one person or a very few sort of people. All right. As it were in many of the parties.
Yes, and like the same people in the leadership of the parties for centuries.
Yeah.
So to speak.
So that is it. But also, inclusion, diversity and inclusion. How our political parties diverse in terms of their leadership, for example. How diverse are they in terms of gender, in terms of ethnicity, in terms of regionalism, in terms of other factors, but also the membership in terms of disability, for example, and other factors. So we need to structure our political parties to modernize and civilize them and democratize them. Okay. So that, and why this is important, Charm, is that if a political party is democratic in itself, abiding by good governance principles and practices, when that political party assumes state power, it continues on that path of democracy, of good governance.
It would have been in their values.
Yeah, right. But if a political party is not democratic, when it assumes power, it will not be democratic. The government will not be democratic because they are not used to it.
Absolutely.
So it is in our interest that political parties are democratic. Yes, it is important that they are democratic and they practice it, and we see that they are practicing it. And that also is very good, because then you also allow for recruitment, for participation, for professionalization, institutionalization. Now, go to any of our political party headquarters. Do they have, and now I'm talking about structure, why we need to really modernize and civilize and democratize our parties. You go to our political party structures. Do you find professionals there who are employed by the party dealing with communications, monitoring and evaluation, policy analysis, all of those things. So that today, if I go to any party headquarters, I say, look, what is your party policy on climate change? Will they be able to show me, here's a document, our climate change, which is continuously updated.
And they should even have a shadow climate minister, environment minister.
Exactly. So we need to really structure our political parties, just like a government in waiting. And that's what this is called, exactly. Government in waiting. So it has to be in practice a government in waiting. So that, on every issue, the political party has a structure, has a responsible person who are able to deal with this. All right. So that the party headquarters is not just some camp or some place, grand place where people go and sit to do attire and chat and do the gossiping and go home. And thinking that the party is the responsibility of the party leader or few of those executive members. And we cannot run a party like that, And then, of course, I think our parties also need some modernization. You see, this idea of party leader becoming flag bearer, it has to be separated. In the sense that I think we should get to a point where if I am a party leader, party president, party chairman, you cannot stand for a flag bearer. That and well,
many of them are sounding like that. I don't know whether they in actual nature they are like that, but no, sounding that kind of thing. That, okay, being a secretary general and party leader does not necessarily translate to be flag bearer.
Yeah, but the point is, if you are a party leader or party secretary general, you eventually can also become the flag bearer at the Congress. You can be elected. What I'm saying is, if you are party secretary general, party leader, party secretary general, we should be based on a term limit.
Yes.
As long as you are that, you cannot stand as flag bearer. The flag bearer has to be a different party.
Different party.
All right.
Well, okay.
Yeah, because the whole idea is, how do we decentralize power? How do we prevent power and influence, of one person dominating our party decisions and actions? All right, because
that's where the problem is,
because the practice
traditionally it's even hard to imagine that the leader of the party wouldn't be
the flag bearer. Yeah, and that now that is creating agitation in a lot of the parties now.
That's right.
And because one problem is all of those party leaders or secretary general and party leaders have also been there, some for decades, some 5 years, 10 years, and so on. Right. So we need to all our parties need to go back to the drawing board to begin a restructuring of our political parties, so that and that is where the institutionalization comes. so that we institutionalize our parties in such a way that they now become professionals. You know, I
That's
mean,
right.
they have a party secretariat which has its staff, professionals who may not even be party members, but these are people like me or you appointed to come and do a job.
Absolutely.
And you go get your salary, go home.
Well, that's what the NPP said they are trying to do. And
Well, you know, let them show us their constitution and then the
well,
restructure
they're putting up structures everywhere and new buildings and new structures.
We need to see the source of those funds.
A fully functional.
Well, as I said, we will come over to see the source of those funds. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, let's go back to a few things before we wrap up. That is, you had well, I don't know how to call it, a diplomatic spat or an internal row within the Ministry of Foreign Affairs when you have an ambassador taking on the minister for what the minister said about some of the problems affecting our foreign missions abroad. Alcali Conte, the ambassador to Turkey, in a rebuttal of the minister's statements at Mansa Kunda recently, said that it was unfair for the Minister of Foreign Affairs to say that some of the problems that we encounter are actually political appointees who have become ambassadors and cause a lot of embarrassment to the government, to the country. He took up issues with that and even reminded the minister himself that at some point he himself was involved in a brawl, in public view. Some people said one of them, that the minister or the ambassador, should go over this matter. Which one do you think crossed the line, red line?
I think both of them crossed the line. Yeah.
Both of them?
Yeah.
That can't be wrong.
Yeah, I think
Let
they
me
are
remind
both.
what the minister said. He said at the Mansa Kunda, and I think he was asked, Mansa Bema, I think how do we call it, Mansa Kunda? I think he was asked the question, what do you explain about these numerous cases of embarrassment that we have experienced we have ambassadors or diplomats expelled from Washington, D.C. We have a lot recalled from Havana, Morocco, and all the others. So the minister was trying to say that most of the problems had to do with political appointees. And he said, even there, if you're appointed by the head of state, you should definitely be loyal to that trust. So apparently the political appointees in the foreign embassies today are united that the minister was referring to them. And they cited the case of the ambassadors in Washington who were expelled. They were not political appointees. To be fair, they were technocrats.
So, John, the minister essentially is complaining
Yes.
about his ministry.
I think he's frustrated that he may have powers over certain people in the mission. That's what it looks like.
Yeah, so he is complaining
Yes.
about the situation in our foreign service, which he oversees.
Yes.
I don't think he should go to the public there to lament it, because we did not elect him or appoint him as a minister to come and lament to us about problems in his ministry. He is made minister to make our foreign service function. And so it is either he makes it function, and he cannot make it function, to resign. All right, and then complain and resign. So I'm expecting his resignation. I hope he will resign, because he has demonstrated that he cannot deal with this.
Even the ambassador said some of the problems were his failures.
So it is his failure. I mean, I think our ambassador Tangara,
So
our foreign minister Tangara is inefficient. I think he should quit. You see, Jam,
But is he not right that?
no, hold on, Jam.
Yeah.
What he said is right.
Yes. So
But
is it wrong?
But that rightness of what he said is also the failure of his leadership.
But he was asked. Maybe he didn't intend to
Well,
discuss
maybe
them publicly.
whoever asked him did a very good job.
Yes,
for
that's
us.
right. Yeah.
All right, and so that we really know where the problem is, and the problem is we just have a foreign minister who is inefficient. All right.
Okay, I do not discount the fact that he could resign, but he seemed to be frustrated that there are people appointed who are he called them stumbling blocks. But actually, I think what he meant is that he said they are entitled.
Who appointed them?
The president.
Right. So he's the foreign minister. He is the authority in the government. the chief advisor to the president as far as foreign service is concerned. So no ambassador can be appointed without his knowledge.
Or input.
Without his input, without his consultation, even without his approval. So he cannot come to the public and lament to us about that. That is the matter he and Mr. Barrow should deal with in the cabinet room in his office, and to agree or disagree. If he does not agree with Mr. Barrow, to say, well, Mr. Barrow, don't take your position. I am leaving. I cannot be then your foreign minister. Cham, you've been a journalist all these decades, all right? You've met ambassadors here, US ambassadors,
Yes.
British ambassadors, EU ambassadors. When you talk with them with their profile, what do you see?
Oh, of course. Seasoned.
Yeah.
Seasoned.
You know, no ambassador has come here in the Gambia, US ambassador, and tell you, I was a party chairman in the Democratic, party in America, and then, no.
But then, of course, every new administration bring new ambassadors.
But I'm just saying,
I agree their capacity.
I'm just saying, every new ambassador that Trump will bring here,
Yes.
with all what Trump is,
Yes.
he is going to bring someone, an ambassador here. Go and interview that person when he comes. You will hear him or her say,
Where he served before.
you'll see the expertise, the experience, and everything.
So
because the foreign service, the foreign service, like any other public service, is a professional area.
It's a technical area.
It's professional. Yeah, that is it. That's why it's technical.
Yeah,
It's
technical.
professional. It's technical. It is, and it is serious business. So the failure of this minister in the first place, it's not just today. He was foreign minister before. All right. But in any case, since he became foreign minister.
Was it foreign? I think it was education minister.
Yeah, okay, yeah, and then
UN,
ambassador.
and then UN.
But knowing our foreign ministry, since 2017, we would expect that our foreign ministry would have put our foreign ministry on track, put it in order, put the house in order, set standards, set codes. Go and open the website of the Senegalese Ministry of Foreign Affairs or the website of the Ghana Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and you look at the standards,
The profile.
codes, the professional codes, ethical codes and standards they expect of the political, of the representatives. Now, I have occasion to deal with some Ghanaian diplomats because we were in college together, University of Ghana, way back.
Yeah.
So some of them are now have become ambassadors in Brussels, in South Africa, and other places, or at different levels in the foreign service. And I will sit there and tell me, hey, Mr. Madi, I'm back in Ghana now. I've come for some refresher training because I need to be promoted to another level.
Yes.
I have friends, Ghanaian friends.
I know.
Yeah. So it tells you there is order in this place.
Yes.
Yeah, there is a system in this place. Yeah, but
the minister too, alluded to the fact that the ambassadors if she said it in other countries, in fact, he said exactly that in other countries, the ambassadors would have undergone some training before being.
Well, but why is he not doing that in the Gambia?
I think his statement is expressing frustration.
So I don't doubt about that, but I'm just saying
Yeah.
that frustration just reflects his failure. All right, so that his failure, because look, let's also be fair to Mr. Barrow. Mr. Barrow has no idea about foreign service. Mr. Barrow has no idea about public service because he never even worked in public service, and he's not some highly PhD holder, educated somebody. So to a large extent, Mr. Barrow has no idea about foreign service. All right. So which means, and this is why I'm coming back to the point I made earlier, the significance, the importance of the cabinet and cabinet ministers. Yeah. So that they should have provided guidance to a president, particularly a president who is not well informed, like these ministers, each of these ministers.
Especially their line ministers.
What happened to them? Yeah. So Tangara should have provided serious guidance to the president, not to mention all the ministers and and so on.
Probably he has no powers to override the president's choice for ambassador because the president picked his friend from his party or people who supported his policy.
Then that is the occasion to resign. And that is working for your country. That you are not going to be part of anything that is going to undermine your country, because what has been happening in the foreign service is a disgrace to our country. And nobody should condone that.
Okay.
So this part happened. Why is Alkali Conte not recalled until now?
You said Alkali 2 is wrong. How is he wrong?
His statement, all right? I mean, it's insubordination. The foreign minister is your superior, all right? I mean, in any case, to be fair to Tangara, Tangara did not mention Alkali Conte.
He mentioned his types.
Well,
when he said political appointments.
Yeah, but he did not mention Alkali Conte, all right? But you went ahead to write a stinker against your superior, to disgrace him, you know.
I also disagree. I even blame him for the failures that Tangara highlighted. He said Tangara is to blame for it, like you said here.
Right, but the way manner Mr. Conte also did it is wrong. All right, reach out to Tangara to raise your concerns through the usual official channels. All right, but you cannot just come and so both of them have disparaged our foreign service, because now they have all laid bare the disgrace, you know, the mess that is in our foreign service. So for me, both of these gentlemen don't deserve their positions.
They should quit.
They should quit.
Or be asked, or be made to quit.
Or be made to quit. So I hope Mr. Barrow will take action by Monday to remove them. If they cannot realize that, look, I need to resign. Okay. This country, we cannot be joking with this country. I think for 60 years we've been joking with this country. And this is why, for me, I have set up this center. And it is not a joke. No. I mean, we may not make impact. Nobody may not listen to us or care. But one thing for sure, we are not going to compromise the best interest of the Gambia, the rule of law in the Gambia. And this is why this year we have declared it the year of transparency and accountability.
Most people said you are the most consistent civic society activist they have found. But then others said you are through and through an opposition politician. How do you reconcile these two perceptions?
There's nothing to reconcile.
Do you agree that you tend to dine and wine with opposition viewpoints more than anything else?
No. So, one party wins to take charge of the state.
Oh, there can only be one ruling party. Is that what you are saying?
Even if it is a coalition.
Yes.
You know, there is one government and the coalition or one party takes charge of the government. And the president of the republic takes an oath to uphold and defend the constitution. Right. And to this government, Gambians pay their taxes. In our name, they take loans and grants. They have a responsibility to execute the laws of this country, to enforce them, in which enforcement is the protection and the promotion and the fulfillment of our rights as citizens. So the government of the Gambia is a legitimate target for me as a person, and for our organization, and for every Gambian and every organization in this country. Their primary focus should be the government of the Gambia,
because that is the one that is
that
managing our affairs.
You know, for anything, we don't pay taxes to the opposition parties. They have not taken the oath to defend our constitution. They don't command the police and the military, and you know, our Ministry of Education and Healthcare and others are not in their hands.
So you are not obsessed in criticizing the government just for the sake of it, but because they are the ones in control of the things that you care.
Exactly. So somebody may classify that as criticism, which is okay. All right. But as far as Madi Jobarteh is concerned, and for the reason I set up the Edward Francis Moore Center, is accountability.
Okay.
We are holding President Adam Barrow accountable beyond and above any citizen in this country, without compromise.
Because of his job.
Because of the position he holds. Let him leave office tomorrow and see whether we will be busy with him, unless on matters that connect to the Gambia, like in the case of Yajam. You know, so the other opposition parties, they have a duty to also abide by the law to adopt, practices and policies that advance the interests of the country. And we check them, and we have raised a lot of issues with political parties generally.
Disagreement.
And with political leaders, all right, to either agree or disagree with them, just as we have agreed with government also sometimes and disagreed with them. But this is how matters stand.
I see.
So if someone says Madi is an opposition, again, that is why we are here, to make sure that people exercise their freedom of expression, their freedom of opinion.
Yeah.
I mean, if you classify Madi in that manner, which is fine, I'm not worried about that. Just like if you say Madi is consistent, I'm not asking anyone to be consistent. I'm not considering myself to be consistent or not consistent. As far as I'm concerned, I am upholding the constitution of the Gambia. Good. All right. So however way you take me, because I see people, like Dr. Ismail say, Madi, you are hiding behind civil society to get into, meaningless talk. Like, how can one hide behind?
He's not the only one who makes such criticism.
Yeah. So, because again, people who disagree don't have a way to advance their opinion. Have a point.
Arguments,
they want to get into some circumstantial underhand tactics to see how to hit you. But if I didn't even tell anyone to call me an activist. I didn't apply for any position called activism. I'm just doing what I think a citizen should do. Sure. If that is activism to you, fine.
And if that is a political
opposition to you, that is fine. But that is my right.
Yeah.
Yes, and just as I have created Edward Francis Small Center for Rights and Justice, tomorrow I can go and create a political party. Which is also my right in the Constitution. So
in that case, you'll be playing to the hands of your critics who said he's a politician in waiting.
Yes, so which is still a meaningless talk, because what will Madi do tomorrow? What will I do tomorrow? That's up to me. There's no law that says I cannot create a political party or join a political party tomorrow. I can do that today.
Some people said you even refuse to be a candidate for one of the party or the coalition. People said instead of Adam Barrow, he should have been Madi Jobarteh. So you should have been the one we've been dealing with now. They said you refused an approach to be the coalition leader, or maybe one of the party's leader.
Well,
is that true?
Well, I'm not a politician.
Have you ever been approached to contest for any party?
Yeah. I think that's already in the public space.
Really?
In the 2016, some folks within UDP, I guess that the time they are looking for a candidate, yes.
You turned them down?
Yes, because,
were you afraid of Jammeh then?
Oh, no. I wasn't. I don't think I am cut out for party politics as such.
Did you ever sit down and reflect that you could have been president if you had taken that over?
Yeah, but I don't want to be president.
You could have been president. Have you ever sit and reflect, well, if I had accepted to be UDP flag bearer, I would have got to be the coalition.
All things remaining equal, yes.
Did you ever sit and reflect?
No, never sit to reflect on that. But
you
now that you say...
You did not sit down and say, I have missed something.
No, I've not missed anything. I'm fine. I'm not sure about that.
Madi Jobarteh of the Edward Francis Small
yes.
Center for Justice and Rights.
Yeah. Thank you.
It's been a pleasure to have you on the Brunch. I know we can go on and on. We won't exhaust the
Absolutely.
many issues that you tackle every day.
Many more
and
things.
will be tackling.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for your courage, your consistency, and your bravery in tackling on issues that most people would have loved to let slip by. The Brunch will be back on Saturday. Until then, I have to thank Madi on your behalf. This time he has not much controversy as he did the last time, I hope. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
The Brunch will be back next week.
Thank you.
Islamic microfinance is becoming an increasingly popular mechanism for poverty alleviation, especially for developing countries around the world. This microfinance service adheres to the principles of Islam as a form of social responsibility. Yona Islamic Microfinance is the Islamic microfinance of choice in the Gambia, trustworthy and reliable. At Yona Islamic Microfinance, we provide savings products, current accounts, financing products in conformity with Islam. In addition, Yona Islamic Microfinance also offers local and international remittances, takaful fund, management of zakat, management of awqaf, trading and investment, and building of strategic partnerships to bring financial services to the doorstep of the poor with donor projects, madrasas, youth organizations, women groups, and farmer organizations. Make a choice with Yona Islamic Microfinance today. For more information on Yona Islamic Microfinance, call 377-2151 or 9832-151 or visit Yona head office at Tipa Garage, Bakote, or visit any Yona branch located countrywide near you.
Jamano Money Transfer Bureau de Change, your go-to option when it comes to money transfer. With Jamano, you can send money from anywhere in the world to your family and loved ones in the Gambia and be sure the funds will be delivered to them within the shortest time possible. For your convenience, funds sent through Jamano Money Transfer can be picked from all the banks and multiple other financial institutions, including Ajib Bank, Trust Bank, GT Bank, Mega Bank, Basic Bank, Reliance Financial Services, and Approved Services. Visit our head office at Bruceby opposite AfricMed next to Trust Bank Limited or email us at info@jamanomt.com. You can as well call us on 310-3050 or 310-3051 or yet still 733-0688. Our opening hours are 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Monday to Saturday and 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. on Sunday. Jamano Money Transfer, your most trusted money transfer service where customer satisfaction is paramount. When you think of a simple, fast, and reliable money transfer, think Jamano Money Transfer.
I get it.
Mbijano aganyani.
Albaka.
Mbaka important.
Yo, nga transfer la sto.
Ya transfer la sto.
Ha, code nyingi.
Okay. Important. Nsila ID soto.
That's what. Sorry. I get it.
Mbijano bro.
Albaka.
Mbaka.
Bara alla service o tariaka.
Mbare.
Mo ki janna nun kunu bara tariaka.
Janno mi yona forest de bureau. Gambia tonkon na no mbali ya bere. Birim koyna fo kato.
Bari si kodo kino kato nim fo bolong blabe.
56 branches mola soto Gambia jam.
Ha?
Gambia kono anin Gambia bantala bankol. Nka kodo kiya bere. Kodo sifa fo falindiro fo nyaadi lafta memmen na kodi to poto nin kodi maraw. Jannom number 1 ti nyonta. Andum fana nata anoda enterprise sotale. Golam nyindi ko domorol fana kol fana be firale le dadi ma nin domorol dir fana beteata. Gambia dawda yalo ngam fa kendol sotale je.
Wo moyo diat.
Apelenta
baraka. Ni mo lafta nyelen kendol e bina.
Yalo bu kanila ko la baraka ba.
Yalo ndel chosano lo.
Baraka.